Can you build a property business and a property portfolio with only £10,000 of savings? In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what I would do if I was starting with just £10,000. If you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Hussain, and on this channel we have 3 videos a week to ultimately help you get further faster in your property investing journey. So a few days ago I was watching a documentary, Undercover Billionaire, where Grant Cardone was starting out with absolutely nothing, no money, couldn't use his name and couldn't use his contacts. And it just got me thinking, if I was to start again in this property business, where would I start and how would I build that business? I often get asked by many people, they've got a small amount of money or £10,000, how do you get started in property? And it made me think, and I thought, there's 2 key things that I have. I have the knowledge here and I have the contacts. That's my phone, by the way. I have the contacts in my phone, and that's what enables me to give me massive success. But what if I couldn't access those? What if I couldn't use the contacts I had? And what if I didn't know what I already know? How is it I would start and how would I build this business? To make money from property, you either need to own it or control it. And most people own property in this country either through a mortgage or they've purchased it outright cash. But if you own a property with a mortgage, do you really own that property? Well, actually, if you start paying the mortgage, you will soon find out who owns it, because although you may own that property at the land registry on ownership on paper, but ultimately somebody else has influence and control over that property, and that's the lender. And that's a key thing to remember. It's not necessarily about ownership, but control of an asset and what you can do with it. But once we do have ownership or control of a property, then we're either going to make money from the rental profit we make each month, or from capital appreciation by adding value or value that increases over time. They're kind of the 2 key ways to do it. But if we're only starting with a small amount of money, say £10,000, how is it that we're going to get started? How are we going to get a foot on the ladder? Well, when we control property, what it means, somebody else has an interest in that property. It might be owner of a property that's already involved in that. It may be someone funding a property, for example, an investor that's putting cash into it. So it's thinking about how you can leverage these other things. So where is it that we would get started? Assuming we have no knowledge of property at the moment in terms of how property works and property investing, and also assuming we've got access to very little money, where do we start? The starting point really is learning about the area that we're in, understanding the demographics of a particular area. Because property, primarily the values are based on where it's located and how many rooms it has. That's really and essentially how property is valued in this country. There, of course, there's a few other quirky things as well, but that's the key thing. So by understanding the area, who lives in that area, what type of properties exist there, it helps us learn a little bit about the property market in that area. Now, it may be that you live in a very expensive area, lucky you, hey? Maybe it's somewhere where it's so difficult to break into the property market, like London, for example. Prices are so high and it's not so easy, and your £10,000 is really not going to get very far at all. So it's thinking about sometimes your area may be the starting point, or it may be somewhere close by to you. And I know sometimes people talk about investing in 200, 300, 400 miles away. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that unless you already have some good knowledge and understanding of property and have key people in that locality that can help you. So by learning about the area, what is it that we're interested in understanding? Well, it's not only the type and style of property, like are they Victorian, Edwardian style, are they modern properties? It's not just the type of property, but it's the type of people that live in that area. So it's understanding the demographics, the social demographics, the makeup of the communities there. And is it a type of area where people are really aspiring to move into and want to live there? Or is it the kind of area where people are just desperate to get out of there as fast as they can? Because to be frank, it's just a toilet, right? People just want to get out of there as fast as they can. And unfortunately, there are some of these ghettos, these deprived areas, you get high crime rates, you get a lot of social problems in those areas. Now, when you're doing property in those areas, it's a very challenging market to work within. And when we're already starting with a very small budget and limited knowledge, we don't want to have that uphill struggle. We want to make it easy for us. So finding and identifying areas that are aspiring areas people want to move into. And if you're thinking, how do I do that? Think about the big retailers that spend a lot of time researching where they're going to open their next stores. Your Starbucks, your Pizza Expresses, Marks and Spencer Food Hall. These are all indications that they've spent a lot of research before they made the decision to open stores in those areas. So they tend to be up and coming areas, and this is what we're looking for. And those areas, it means that there's easier opportunities for us to make money from property in those particular zones. By becoming familiar with a particular location, what it enables us to do is to work out which is the right type of strategies that work in that market in that particular time frame. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're based in Birmingham right now. It's a fairly active and vibrant city. Prices are really strong right now. Market's active. Now, if I came in here and say, right, what I'm looking for is 25% below market value deals. Well, hey, look, here's the thing. You're going to struggle to find those. I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's trying to find a needle in a haystack because it's not really the right market for those type of deals. And I know people talk about it's a phenomenal strategy. B&B is a phenomenal strategy, but you've got to find strategies that work in particular locations and at the right time. So when you understand the area that you're in, what type of demographics, what type of property, what's happening in that property market generally, it allows you to pick out these opportunities. So for example, it might be rent-to-rent property, it could be HMOs, it could be service accommodation, it could be flipping property, it could be converting commercial buildings, building, lease options. There's so many different strategies that you can make money from in property, but you can't use them all. It's about picking which is going to be the right ones, which is going to work particularly well in that location. So for instance, let's say you're in a town that's a lot of young people there, say it's a university town. When those students are graduating from university, many of them might be staying locally to work, and they might still like the idea of living, say, in professional HMOs. So you're identifying there's a market for this. You can do some research around that to see how many people are already advertising this type of rooms, how many people are letting those rooms. So really getting a gauge and a feel for what the market is, how much to charge for those, so you can work out, actually, is this a profitable business? Is it a profitable model? On the other hand, it may be that you're flipping property, you want to buy, add value and sell property. And remember, we're starting with only £10,000 right now. So I'm going to talk about how you're going to do this. Make sure you watch all the way to the end so you don't miss any of the steps in terms of what you need to do. Right now, what I'm trying to do is lay the foundation, the key things that you need to understand and the steps that you need to follow. So by understanding the right type of strategy that's going to work, and for example, we're talking about flipping just now, and if you're going to be flipping property by adding value, you need to make sure it's in a market, as we said, where people want to live in, people want to move into that area, and also by adding certain things to the property, improving in a certain way, for example, new kitchen, new bathroom, that's going to help make it more desirable. Now, generally speaking, those kind of things help in terms of selling a house, but you want to not only help sell the house, but you want to add value to the house so you can make profit from these type of deals and these types of transactions. This is why knowing the market is so important, because you can then find the right strategy that's going to work in that marketplace for us to be able to build a business from there. Before we talk about the number one skill that you absolutely need to master when we're starting with very little money in property investing, if you're enjoying this content, make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel and enable the notification bell so that way you get notified when these videos are being released. So what is the number one skill you need to master? And that is sourcing. So we've just been talking about understanding your area, understanding the strategy, because ultimately the skill that you need is the ability to be able to find these deals, find these opportunities. So what's an opportunity? An opportunity is what's going to enable you to make money from property. So you can find these opportunities and then either benefit them from yourself or pass them to somebody else and make a fee. Now remember, if you're unable to find deals, if you don't understand this skill, how are you ever going to progress forward in property? That's why this is such an important skill. I know people talk about you need to start here, you need to start there. For me, I believe that's the key thing. And this is where I started, because when I started my journey 15 years ago, it literally was with no money and no experience and no knowledge of property, just a burning desire. That's all I had. And really, once I got my head around sourcing and understanding how to find property, analyze deals, break the numbers down, make sure they're profitable, and also being critical on those numbers and not being over optimistic, being realistic with those numbers, it meant that actually I could start moving forward. We could start cherry picking deals and also start partnering with other people on some of those deals as well. Right now, there's two massive advantages that I have that I mentioned earlier on. That's what I know and that's who I know. So here we've been talking about what you know by understanding and building knowledge. The next thing we need to build is who you know, i.e. your network, your contacts, your connections, because that's what's going to enable you to build this business and scale a business and also be able to leverage other people and leverage other resources. So who's important? Who do you need to know? There's many people you need to build a relationship with. One of the easiest way to do this is networking events and business networking events as well. You get specialist property ones. We run one as well. I mean, right now in lockdown, there's not a lot of events happening, but this will change. This will pass and the networking events will come back. And this is a great place to build relationships. You know, you will meet people who could potentially invest in deals with you, who buy deals from you, could be funding partners, there'll be people that might also be sourcing property that you can learn from and work together from, or you may be able to find properties through them that you can pass to somebody else. Because remember, it's all about building those network and connections. And also people like architects and solicitors, accountants, all these people will build a part of your team as you grow. Because once you're finding these amazing deals, remember, we're starting with a very small amount of money. So how is it we're going to build it from there? Because what we want to do, we want to find those deals. We want to understand, particularly with investors and buyers and funders, what is it that they're looking for? What's their criteria? What's their requirements? And you're trying to find something that's going to fit that you can suit them. Because right at the beginning of your journey, you'll start looking at deals. You'll think this is amazing, that's amazing. But does somebody else think it's amazing as well? Because they're ultimately the one that might pay you a fee for that. So what we're trying to do here is marry up and match what's a good fit and a good deal by understanding people's requirements. So really, another place that you can start building these contacts and connections is networking groups online, such as Facebook. Facebook has an enormous number of property networking groups that you can join and start talking about what you're doing and start building those connections as well. And now when you're doing this, my suggestion would be at the beginning, I know you can go and set up your own sourcing business, there's some costs involved in that as well. I'd strongly encourage you to work with somebody so you can just understand the basics and learn them before you go off and set your own business. And that way you don't necessarily need to go through the whole process of setting up a company, do this for 6 months and find, hey presto, this is quite difficult. You know, you throw the towel and walk away and you've just lost money. Before you do that, before you give up, and the reason I say before you give up, because unfortunately many people will give up. With all this knowledge and information I'm sharing and helping people, the reality is very few people will actually take it and use it. Which one are you going to be? Are you going to be the one that actually uses information, or are you going to just think, hey, this is great, but you don't do anything with? Knowledge is amazing if you do something with it. So it's about building those contacts, building those connections, and then what you're able to do is take those properties, match them to the ones that fit to the people looking for those type of particular deals, and you start building cash flow. Here now we're not owning any property at this stage. What we're doing is controlling a transaction, i.e. a property that we found, and we're monitoring over to somebody else that's going to purchase it. We're overseeing that process, and that's how we're making money from that particular transaction. The next step is, how do you now need to acquire property when we're only starting with this small pot? Before starting this journey again, the next thing that I would do at this stage is I would just try and make sure I've got some solid cash flow. And the way I would build that cash flow before I go on to acquire property is maybe like rent to rent, HMOs or service accommodation. And this has also been part of my journey, so it's not something I would do, it's something I already have done as part of the progress in terms of where we've got to today. So sometimes people rush into these massive deals, and I know this is something that's not going to make you rich overnight, but hey, I believe if you work hard at this, you build slowly, what you're able to do is get very wealthy over a long period of time. And essentially, many people give up because they want the result just like that. They want instant gratification. They just don't want to put the effort in. But I promise you, if you put the effort in, the rewards are absolutely massive. So you start building some cash flow. That might be just a handful of properties, you know, a few £1,000s a month, and most people are financially free. They can pay their bills, they can pay their rent, their mortgage, whatever it might be, you know, some food costs, pay the car expenses. It means you can survive without having to work 9 to 5 every day. And so what that means is it takes the pressure off financially, so you can focus on how do I now build a business, because your overheads are covered, your basic costs are covered. So initially I would just look at the cash flow, make sure I got some of that cash flow sorted out. And then the next thing that I would do is look, say, right, how can we acquire property? Now, hopefully by this point, it means you've sold a number of deals onto other people by sourcing properties for them. It means you've maybe built up some rent to rent or some cash flow type deals that's bringing you some income in as well. And the reason I wouldn't necessarily scale that into a big business, because these are time intensive businesses, service accommodation, rent to rent. As they grow, you need to start putting systems in, people in, your costs grow, you start building a big business. I don't want to build a big business there. I just want a bit of income from that so I can focus on how do I build property that we're going to own. And remember what we talked about ownership earlier on. You might have your name on the title deeds. It doesn't mean you control that property. So what we're looking to do is how we can build assets that we're going to benefit from over time. So the next thing I would do is start talking to people about partnering with me on deals. That might be they're lending money for projects, or it might be they're coming in and funding the deals, or what I refer to as funding partners, because this way now you can build assets that you're going to effectively own and also benefit from the cash flow you're going to be able to create or capital growth over time. If I had the choice of the two, really at this stage, what I would do, I would focus on being able to flip property. because if it works, particularly in the area that you're in, because what you're able to do, remember, you've got your overheads covered with some of the cash flow coming in. What this will enable you to do is start building up little pots of cash. Yes, you're working with other people, they're funding your deals, you're partnering with them, but by building a little cash pot, you're going to be able to go off and do your own deals and maybe be able to move on to bigger deals once you have the confidence and the experience, and are you giving you the skills that you need to be able to do that. Saj, how long is all this going to take? I hear you ask. Well, you know, if I was going to set a plan like this together, I would plan for about a 2-year timeline. Now, I know you might not necessarily want to hear that, and I know people talk about, hey, you're going to be rich in 90 days. Personally, I think that's unrealistic. It's not possible to do that. But if you diligently plan this sort of route out for yourself, where you start first by understanding an area, you learn sourcing, you work out the right strategies that you're sourcing, you then start selling some of those deals on, then you maybe start partnering with people or start working with investors. This is a business you can build and scale for the long term, not the short term. Some people also start this business, then fall flat on their face because they misjudge what's involved and how much effort is involved. This is where you're building your knowledge and building your content. So remember, I started this video by saying there's 2 key massive benefits I have. That's the knowledge and the contacts, and this is what I'm encouraging you to build. And over a 2-year time frame, you can absolutely do massively well in this particular strategy. If you think of some of the super wealthy property developers around the world, maybe Donald Trump may not be the most favorite person in the world, may not be your cup of tea, but if you look at what he's done, he's become he's become uber wealthy, not by owning property, by understanding how to control property. And this is what I want to emphasize on this video. Those that are quicker maths will have worked out, I actually haven't spent that £10,000 yet we started with at the beginning of this video, because this is really to demonstrate by understanding how this works, you can actually build a property business with little or no money. Now, just to be clear, I don't encourage trying to build a business with no money. It is hard work, but it is absolutely possible. Now, the more money you have, the easier it becomes, because you can take advantage of in terms of certain strategies that other people will struggle with. But many people also become lazy because they've got more money. Those that have little or no money, in my experience, tend to be hungrier and find a way to do this, which is essentially why I started. So hey, look, I hope you're enjoying this video. I've got lots of videos where we talk about these strategies in a lot more detail. The Wednesday videos, make sure you check them out on the channel. Just click on the videos section on the channel. You'll see all the videos we've done. I think we're about a couple of hundred videos. And if you're enjoying this, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and enable the notification bell. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.